Are the Iowa farmers that $20 billion is going to their
$40 billion.
$40 billion is going to their competitors?
Oh, they're pissed. Oh yeah, and it's what's really interesting about it is the tariffs are the ones that create, like the trade war. The tariffs created the problem, got rid of the markets, and now we're going to pay them back with money from the tariffs that started the problem. Doesn't make any sense, right? They're more pissed. Farmers want they don't want a bailout. Farmers want fair markets. That's what they want. They want good, fair markets, and they had that until Trump got there and started doing what he's doing, creating trade wars, creating chaos in the marketplace, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. And then, like you said, giving $40 billion to Argentina, it's a slap in the face. What I'm seeing is, it's condensing down Iowa to these major metropolitan areas, so they have more land to farm on, so more of those big ag corporations are making money hand over fist, and the small farmers are getting out of the way. That's what it seems like. So again, we need to fight for small farmers. We need to fight for working class people to prevent what's going on.
Doug Fuller's family has been farming in northern Polk County for generations.
Now I get to call all the shots.
He's already nervous about the cash crop he's about to start planting. Soybeans are the target of China's retaliatory tariff, 10% on certain imports from the United States, in response to President Trump's 10% blanket tariff on Chinese goods. Fuller is fearful it spells bad news for the 2025 harvest.
You know, they aren't good for the other countries, they aren't good for me, and who could blame them putting reciprocal tariffs on us? You know, it's just a match, you know, and nobody's going to win.
China is one of the largest overseas markets for American soybeans. According to the USDA, the United States exported nearly $13 billion in soybeans to China last year alone. Fuller has already faced 2 years of bean prices dropping and says it looks as if the trend may continue.
Last year we took a step back, and now we're taking another step back. So I'm, many of us we'll get through it, and it's going to be tough.
Greetings, my lovely people, and welcome back to my channel. U.S. farmers, once proud supporters of Donald Trump, are now crying out for help. This is because the trade war with China have led many family farms on the edge of bankruptcy, and now they are begging and crying to Donald Trump to stop the trade war with China and give them a fair trade deal. Farmers believed in Donald Trump that he would fight for them, protect American jobs, and rebuild the American economy. But what they got instead was a trade war that turned into war with them. So let's get to see the reactions, then we come back with commentary, and kindly hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments, all right? Let's dive into it.
I'm making this video from Iowa. We own a soybean farm here, and we are really struggling right now. The entire soybean industry is collapsing thanks to these tariffs and the fact that China has completely cut off all contracts with the United States. They are importing all of their soybeans from Brazil. Thanks to these trade wars, soybean prices have dropped so much that it's pushing all of us farmers into the red in an already difficult year. We're part of the Soybean Farmers Association, and we sent a letter to the president this month urging him to stop this trade war so that the entire industry doesn't go under. On top of that, the tariffs have made all of our farm equipment skyrocket in price. We can barely afford anything right now. Of course, as a farmer, I voted red just like all the other soybean farmers, and now the people we elected are ruining our entire business, our entire way of life, our entire industry. The same thing happened in 2019 when he had the trade war with China. I mean, I know it doesn't make sense that we voted for him again, but we just can't help it. Anyway, any help that we could get urging him to end this trade war would be much appreciated.
Farmers and workers in Iowa who once believed Trump's America First message are now watching their livelihoods collapse under the exact same policies that were supposed to protect them. Since siding with Obama twice, Iowa has become a stronghold for Donald Trump, yet perhaps no state has struggled more with his economic policies. During the first quarter of 2025, Iowa's GDP dropped by 6.1%. That's more than any other state aside from neighboring Nebraska. Manufacturing, which drives 17% of of Iowa's economic output has been hit with higher production costs in part because of steep tariffs on imports like aluminum and steel. Meat packing plants, which help make Iowa the nation's leading pork producer, rely heavily on foreign-born workers, hundreds of thousands of whom saw their legal status stripped away by the president. Trump's war on renewable energy also threatens the wind industry that produces more than half of Iowa's electricity. Kirk Leeds, who is the chief executive of the Iowa Soybean Association, said, "This is as challenging as I've seen it. We've got uncertainties beyond compare." Additionally, Trump's massive bailout of Argentina has upset many Iowans, since China moved immediately after it was announced to lock up Argentine soybean exports to fill the gap from Beijing's boycott of American soy. One of the farmers, named Larry, asked, "Who are you subsidizing, our competitors or us?" This is what happens when political slogans replace actual economic policy. America First was supposed to protect farmers and manufacturers, but the numbers don't lie. Iowa's economy is tanking.
The USDA has decided to end an $11 billion program they had with Iowa farmers that was started about 3 years ago during the pandemic. And this particular program was for Iowa farmers to grow food for food pantries and school food programs. These programs helped farmers develop more efficiencies with their farming techniques, but it also helped them move more product. Now, farmers say they knew that the program would end at some point, just not right now, considering they were already prepared for the next 3 years that were remaining in this current program. This end to this USDA program is going to end programs like local food for schools and subsidies where certain organizations would give like $1,000 to local schools to buy fresh organic food. In the meantime, they're asking people to support these local Iowa farmers because now they've got to move this product. A big problem.
Well, the Democrats were right again, and it turns out the farmers of Iowa are completely shit out of luck, specifically because they voted for Trump, okay? Because his policies have double fucked them, okay? Starting with USAID. Now, you might say, why would USAID be connected to the farmers of Iowa? Well, turns out that USAID was one of their most reliable customers. We were spending up to $2 billion every year buying soybeans from them and then shipping them overseas to feed poor, starving children. Until our Christian president got in office and he said, "What? We are sending food overseas to feed hungry children? For Christ's sake, shut that down immediately." Well, in doing that, they have now taken away the second largest, most reliable customer for these soybean farmers in Iowa. Now, who was their number one customer? Well, it used to be China. And up until recently, they were buying 60% of our soybean exports out of America. But Daddy Trump came in and jacked up these tariffs, started a trade war with China, and now these soybean farmers have lost their number one customer. So now these soy boys are sitting on a Scrooge McDuck level of soybeans with absolutely nobody to sell them to. And that is why they are begging Daddy Trump for a bailout and for him to cut the shit with China so we can get rid of these tariffs. You know, it's amazing. Trump supporters put him in office hoping that he would just ruin the lives of all the people who they hated. But they didn't realize that Trump isn't on their team. He's on Team Billionaire, not on Team Farmer or Team Trucker or Team Everyday American. He only cares about rich people.
So I'm a blue dot in a red state, and I am worried about our farmers. I own a farm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I have lots of neighbors that are farmers. So when I found out that our Department of Agriculture just furloughed and suspended 42,000 employees from their department, that's half of the agency. That really hurts our farmers. It puts a halt on new farm loans that they need. It delays their disaster payments that they're expecting. And they're supposed to be getting these really vital crop reports so that they can plan for next year. And they're not getting those because of this government shutdown and discharging half of the Department of Agriculture. Don't get me started on our soybean farmers. They are really hit hard. Some of them are having to take out high interest bank loans just to survive this uncertainty. And now at the same freaking time, 94 million pounds of food that is produced by the U.S. to provide food relief to our country's citizens, okay? Food banks and community programs nationwide. This current administration just canceled that. They're not doing that this year. People are going hungry. And these farmers produce this food for that program. Shouldn't we be feeding the hungry? And then also caring for those farmers who work effortlessly to produce all this food? It bothers me so much that this administration calls themselves Christian, but don't act like it. What farmers do is holy work. They are feeding our country. So this is not just going to be an economic problem. This is an ethical problem. Whether you're outraged by this because of your faith, because Jesus said to feed the poor, or because of your conscience, or just simple decency, we have to protect our farmers and we have to feed our people. And empathy should not be partisan. It is actually the backbone of a healthy democracy. And that helps your family, my family, and impoverished families all over our country. So we should all be caring about this.
If you have ever driven across the state of Iowa, you may have noticed a very consistent landscape of corn and soybean fields. From Davenport to Council Bluffs and beyond, it's a lot of this. But have you ever wondered why we grow so much of just those two crops? And what the heck farmers are supposed to do when a country like China suddenly stops buying them? The reasoning behind our monocultural surroundings comes down to three things: our soil, our policies, and global demand. Iowa's rich prairie soil and Midwest climate make it perfect for row crops like corn and soy. Iowa's farms used to grow a wider variety of crops, but over time, that diversity disappeared. Why? Because that's not where the money was. U.S. farm policy pushed farmers towards a corn and soybean monoculture, locking it in through subsidies, crop insurance programs, and ethanol mandates that rewarded planting the same crops year after year. Today, nearly 90% of Iowa's farmland is dedicated to just corn and soybeans. Now, this isn't necessarily great for our soil or our environment, but for decades, global demand, especially from China, made it all make sense. China buys huge amounts of soybeans to feed livestock and make things like cooking oil. At one point, they bought a third of all U.S. soy exports. To put it into perspective, in 2024, just last year, China purchased $1.5 billion in Iowa soybeans. This year, China has not purchased a single dollar's worth. Iowa's farmers are currently harvesting soybeans to rot in bins because nobody's buying them. When demand for commodity drops like this, prices, what farmers actually get paid, collapse. Some farmers are now losing money per bushel just to get crops off the field. Thanks to the Trump administration's brilliant tariff idea, China is instead turning to countries like Brazil or Argentina to meet their soybean demands. And the real kicker is that Trump just sent $20 billion to bail out his political allies in Argentina. I'm serious, look that up. Meanwhile, American farmers are on the verge of bankruptcy and praying, literally, for divine intervention. So what's the solution here? Well, places like Iowa need to diversify their crops and offer more than just corn and soybeans, because growing things nobody wants to consume or buy is not helping anybody. Additionally, we could invest in local food processing and food systems to feed people here. 1 in 8 Iowans face hunger. There's no reason anybody living in a state that feeds the world should have to worry about putting food on the table. Additionally, we need to start having thoughtful, productive conversations about the future of farming in Iowa. Farmers are struggling badly, not just financially, but physically and mentally. Multiple studies have shown farmer suicide rates are 2 to 5 times higher than the national average. This is unacceptable. Politicians need to stop using farmers as props for their campaign ads and pawns in global trade wars. Iowa farmers deserve stability, and we all deserve a system that actually works.
I'm just going to speak on experience. First-hand experience with these farmers in America who are being undermined by the Trump regime right now. Now, I know most of them are Republicans and they voted for Trump, so I have no sympathy for you. I have no sympathy for your farm going under. Who I do have sympathy for are the illegals that you hire, because farmers have to be the #1 supplier of illegal slave work. Okay, I've seen what you guys house these illegal people in. I've seen how you keep them up. I've seen the decrepit housing that you put them in, and then you pay them pennies on the dollar. But yet you vote to have them all removed, and then you cry to Trump when they come to your farms and remove them. So Trump says, let's take a step back. We're going to have to look at this now because, oh God, I can't have the illegals leaving who run the farms for the farmers. Okay, for pennies on the dollar. Look, I don't have no sympathy for you farmers. I don't. And I can grow my own food. So I don't need your fucking food, okay? Plus, half your food don't even stay here in the United States. It's shipped out. So, you're not hurting my grocery bill, okay? What you are hurting is human beings who you hire for pennies on the dollar and put them in decrepit housing. You should be ashamed for yourself. And this is what you voted for. So sit in it. And for those who don't do that, and for those who didn't vote for Trump because you knew what you were going to get, he fucked you the first time, he's fucking you the second time. You must really just like to get fucked. I don't know, by a man. But back to what I was saying, I digress. Got a little off topic there. But for those who did not vote for this, I do have sympathy for you. But you better be housing and taking care of these people the way that they should be housed and taken care of. And for those of you who don't, because there's an awful lot of you, sit in that shit.
China, once buying nearly 60% of American soybeans, they stopped buying from them after Donald Trump slapped them with tariffs, Now those soybeans that once fed families across the world sit unsold, while China turns to Brazil and Argentina to buy from them. The results: empty barn, unpaid loans, broken promises, and a rising wave of farmer suicides across rural America. So this isn't just about trade deal. This is about broken promises and the people paying the price. While American farmers waited for relief, they watched their silos overflow with unsold crops and the prices crashed, loans piled up, and many couldn't afford fuels, seeds, or even the next planting season. But that wasn't the only blow. USAID, which bought nearly $2 billion of soybeans every year from the American farmers to send overseas to feed hungry children, was suddenly shut down by the Trump administration. And under Trump's policies, that program was a lifeline, not just for families abroad, but for American farmers who depended on them just to stay afloat, So without China and without USAID, American farmers has no one left to sell their soybeans to. And that's where the heartbreak even deepens. You started hearing stories of a man who couldn't pay his loan, of a man who took his own life because he couldn't stand losing his farm. His family had farmed for generations. So in states like Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas, mental health cases, they saw a record spike. Rural communities that once thrived on hard works and pride are now holding candlelight vigils for their neighbors. And the truth is painful. The very people who believe that Donald Trump will save American farming were left behind, They didn't get a booming economy, but what they got was bankruptcy, despair, and debt. And now, many are saying enough is enough, because this isn't about politics anymore. It's about survival. It's about honesty. It's about leadership that tells the truth instead of spinning the blame. So next time you hear someone say about American first, remember the farmers who once fed the nation, who worked sunrise to sunset, who trusted that their government wouldn't forget about them. Those fields in Iowa tell a story not of prosperity, but of betrayal, And now those who once cheered for the trade wars will now finally see the truth, that there's no winner when American farmers lose. So I hope farmers are learning something here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.